Hi, I'm Rebecca Ye, your Miss Northwest 2012. Inspired by my brother Phil, my personal platform, A Voice for Autism, has developed into a journey in which I wish to communicate the importance of early diagnosis and intervention. Finally, I will share with you why federal autism research and education is underfunded and what you can do. You have probably heard of autism, but you may not understand what it really is, what causes it, and what you can do. Autism is a neurologic disorder characterized by impaired communication, abnormal social interaction, and restricted or repetitive behaviors. It is found in different variations, making it a spectrum disorder in which each individual may fall into a different level of severity. Autism's negative impacts can be debilitating due to the severity of the disorder, the time of diagnosis, and most importantly, whether early intervention is implemented. In addition, effective therapies can be expensive, family stress can be overwhelming, and the opportunity for that autistic individual to be independent and self-sufficient is daunting. This brings me to my own brother Phil. At the age of 4, he was diagnosed with a moderately severe form of autism called pervasive developmental disorder. Phil has an IQ of 76, lacks some social skills that most people his age would have, and would act differently in some ways than your typical 21-year-old. However, he is currently working at Menards, has his driver's license, and 2 years worth of college courses under his belt. In his free time, he loves to hunt and fish, hang out with his peers, and some older adult friends. Although Phil struggles to understand social interactions and communicate his own thoughts to others, he has made huge strides due to the help of our family and his support system.
I am Kim Machenbacher. I'm a speech-language pathologist who worked with Philip as a preschooler all the way through 5th grade. Autism is a neurological disorder. It affects all areas of development differently in every child, but it can impact motor skills, cognitive thinking skills, speech and language skills, social communication skills. So really we look at the developmental milestones. We most profoundly see differences in these children by the age of between 2 and 3. These things show up. So we look for them not to be reaching those developmental milestones in those different areas of cognition, physical, motor, and communication skills, as well as social and play skills. Even before the age of 2, there are some signs, and those signs would be not showing any joy or facial expressions of joy by the age of 6 months. And by 9 months, we like them to be able to imitate our facial expressions, smile back at us, maybe imitate some sounds. And by 12 months, we would like them to be pointing, showing us things, waving at that point, and babbling also. By 16 months, we would like them to have their first words, and by the age of 24 months, starting to put 2 words together that are not in imitation of someone else, but them being able to put 2 words together in a novel way. And so if children are not doing those things at those times, those are red flags that we would certainly want to then monitor those skills to see how they progress. The biggest red flag to me would be if children were able to do those things, were able to put words together and communicate and gesture and point, and then lost their ability to do so.
I'm an EA, an educational assistant, so I traveled through school with him. I started with him in 1st grade and traveled through 12th, which is very unusual. Phil's speech was rather disordered.
The ball just went deeply down.
And then what did you do?
I just set the hook and I know this guy just came in.
Okay.
So things would come out in ways that you had to kind of figure out what he was trying to say. And so communicating with teachers, with friends, with peers, and then with sensory issues that our guys on the spectrum struggled so much with. You know, when he was younger, in 1st grade, I think my first job to me was to gain his trust. And so he's a kid that always needed to touch, you know, and needed that sensory input physically. So I'd let him sit in my lap and twirl my hair, and was, I think that's probably one of the ways we connected. Grade school, when he would get really stressed, we'd have 2 bean bags, and we'd just turn him into a hot dog. one beanbag under, he'd lay down on the beanbag, other beanbag on top, and then I would lay on top of that and squish him. And we'd talk about it, and you know, it helped.
Phil was verbal, which we had at least words to work with, which made my life easier. His words were disordered and were not always in the correct order. He was missing some grammatical structures.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Philip Ye, and I'm gonna have you. I want to watch me how to golf. If I golf to this end and if the ball fly, you better show the camera where it's going. All right, here we go.
And so we cleaned those up. So a little bit of our therapy focused on that, but we also focused mostly on social communication skills, such as initiating topics, being able to talk about many different topics, being able to maintain a conversation with his peers, being able to read body language of other people. And oftentimes children with autism have difficulty with figurative language, so we worked on metaphors and idioms and jokes, those kinds of things. We really tried to work on reciprocal social interaction, give and take interactions with his peers.
There were definite grades where things got tougher. You know, 3rd grade academics got tougher, so he couldn't be in the classrooms for so much of that, so I would pick up that piece sometimes. When we hit middle school, then the social piece really accelerates.
Since autism is a developmental disability and social communication is an area seriously lacking in development, so many of the students come into the high school, which is such a social atmosphere. And for the students that are on the spectrum that are operating a good 5 years, 6 years behind their same age peers, it makes social interaction very difficult. And so for those students that are on the spectrum, they recognize something is drastically different from them and they so want to participate in the social atmosphere of the middle school and the high school, but not having those skills is a very big barrier for them. And the social skills program then tries to bring down those barriers in a variety of ways.
If we can do more with partnering up our ASD students with regular education or age-typical peer mentors, that would make a huge difference for them.
A typical day was coming in, kind of acclimating ourselves to being in the room, being willing to take risks with each other. A lot of times it started with humor and jokes, all sorts of different ways. And then there was the lesson, maybe it was a particular skill that had been identified that we wanted to teach on. A skill that I thought would take us maybe 45 minutes to work on and then move on to, we ended up stretching out to like a week or more. And the fun thing too with the mentors was I wasn't teaching social skills only to those students on the spectrum. The mentors numerous times said, you should make everybody take this class. And they were the ones raising their hands and saying, well, wait a minute, what about this situation?
When it was time for Christmas ball, this was Haley again.
Yeah.
She's an important person in Phil's life. He was trying to figure out what's going to happen at Christmas ball and all this stuff. But he couldn't understand, you know, why Haley wouldn't take time to talk with him about his concerns. So I drew these pictures and I says, okay, Phil, what are your biggest concerns? And so we put those in big bubbles and his little concerns in little bubbles. And I says, okay, Haley's a girl, Phil. These are her big concerns. Showing him that they were totally opposite.
What's missing in a lot of school systems is that we need to develop those social skills from the very beginning. And we need to have that available, you know, from the early childhood level all the way through. That would be the most important thing to me in an autistic child's life is having those social skills available to them from the very beginning.
Phil is near and dear to my heart and has a very special place because he had so much trust in me. He liked to call me Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way, which, you know, when he would get in his moments of constantly calling me Mary Poppins, that's a lot of pressure. I realized that what he was giving to me was just such a gift. And he gave that to everybody in the classroom. He was so always himself. I can't describe him. apart from sounding too religious, I've said many times that getting to work with Phil and getting to work with students on the spectrum is probably the closest I've ever felt to God, just because they are such a gift and trust.
Quite a number of them can be very successful. You know, when you're talking about the people at the very high end with high functioning autism and Asperger's, there are doctors, you know, Asperger's doctors, lawyers, scientists, you know, they're making fabulous discoveries. We'd be nowhere without our people on the spectrum, and they just bring joy to our lives.